Well, there's still a lot of tobacco around, though. I mean, in within our culture. Who's growing it?
It's all grown in big farms in Virginia, Maryland.
So the
Original
small
cow.
tobacco farmers basically gone.
Oh, they're gone because they can't compete anymore.
Okay, really?
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, and this is Jim, and he's going to talk about the process of tobacco growing as he smokes. So, Jim, wherever you want to start, what's the first thing you do when you
The first
grow
thing you
tobacco?
have to do is you till your ground up real good.
Okay.
When you get that done, you put wood all the way around it, like a 2x6, all the way around it. And your beds are long and narrow. They might be 8 foot wide and 100 feet long.
And they all have a wood structure around them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to have something to. Well, here you'll get it in the process.
Okay.
So anyway, after your ground's all tilled up and you got the wood around it, then you take real dry hardwood ashes.
Okay.
And you put them in a pail or something, and then you take a packet of seeds, because there's thousands in there because they're so small.
Mm-hmm.
They're like poppy seeds.
Mm-hmm.
Throw that in there and mix it real good with your hand. And then you go out and take it out of there and strow it.
So you don't even have to dig holes, you just sow them.
You just throw it out there and they'll come up so close together you can't see the dirt.
Okay.
Now them are called slips.
Mm-hmm.
You let them get about that big and you wait till after it's rained, you try to catch it. Then you can go out and pull them right out of the ground, put them in a box that goes on the tobacco setter.
Mm-hmm.
So you got two people riding this setter.
Mm-hmm.
And one puts, it's a wheel that's got little clamps.
Mm-hmm.
And you set one in and the person across from you sets one, back and forth. And I was always the guy that walked behind that. So if somebody missed one, I had a big wad of them and I'd stick one in by hand.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I found all the arrowheads.
Ah.
Okay, by the time you get it all set, the first thing you got to do is spray it with a mixture of 7. Either liquid or powder, just mix it.
Mm-hmm.
You get that done and you spray it on the tobacco when it's, maybe a week or 2 weeks after you've set it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't, flea beetles will just eat the hell out of it.
Mm-hmm.
After you get to that point, then it's just a matter of it growing.
Okay.
And you still want to, probably after a big rain, you want to go in there and spray it again.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of keep that up until it gets to the point where it's tall enough, and before the seed pod comes out, you top it.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have the seed flower up here. You'll have 2 leaves. You cut it down here. It might be only that high at that point.
Mm-hmm. About maybe 4 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's still got, the reason you're taking the top off is so it doesn't quit its growth cycle. After you get done topping it, you spray it for suckers. Mm-hmm. They're the little leaves that come out at the stem and where the leaves of tobacco are.
Right.
They're called suckers, and I used to have to go through there and pull them off by hand.
They have them on tomato plants too.
Yeah. Or have a pocket knife and cut them out of there, depending on if they're woody or not.
Yeah.
Okay, you get all that done. You wait until it's ripe, and that's when the top or the bottom leaves start turning yellow. Then you go ahead and you go in there and cut it. Well, somebody's on a tractor with a trailer, with just bundles and bundles and bundles of sticks that high, about 4 feet in length.
Mm-hmm.
And even some people used to go out in the woods and just cut little round saplings for their tobacco sticks.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing you do is you're out there jabbing that in the ground, and you've got this cone with a sharp spike on the end, and you pick up the tobacco and go over like this and hit it about that high from where you cut it off and ram it down on that spike. Put about 4 or 5 on there, depending how big the leaves are. You get that done, there's a way to stick it out in the field. On that stick, you can flip one of them over like that, and it balances it and keeps it standing up and down. Because you want to field dry it for 2 or 3 days sometimes. It makes it lighter to work with. Then after you get that part done, then comes the tobacco wagons. And they're just long, narrow. They got 4 or 5 posts sticking up, and then 2x6s. Well, you pick up them sticks of tobacco and set them on there and just pack them in as tight as you can go. You get the whole mess on the trailers. Then you head the trailers to the barn. That's where the fun starts. For me, being the youngest on the crew of these old men, they'd put me at the very top of the barn. Well, guess what? That's the smartest place to be. They hand me one stick, and I just got up, stack it, and you leave every in between it now. Stack it in the barn till you get the whole barn full, and then you go to the next barn. But the best job to have is not the guy down here. He's got to pick it up and hand it to this guy, who hands it to this guy, who hands it to me. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 or 5, even in a big barn. So I'm only handling it once. But I'm way up there where if you fall, you're going to bust yourself all to pieces. Okay, after you got it in the barn, man, it's just a matter of waiting.
And how long is it? It's upside down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how long is it in the barn? Typically.
Oh, 2 months, 3 months.
2 months, 3. Okay.
Yeah. You can tell by just walking in there and smelling it. The yellow leaves turn a nice golden brown. There's typically 5 grades that when you're stripping it off after it's been in the barn and cured out, you wait for a rainy day so it's encased enough where the leaves don't shatter. If you come out of there with the leaves dry, you can just smack it like that and it's in the powder.
So you got to wait till there's moisture in the air.
Yeah, that's what's called getting in the case.
Okay.
Yeah. You don't want it too dry, you don't want it too wet. It's just got to be right. When you get that to that point, then you can go and take a bunch out of the barn and stack it on the ground or on a tarp, and you just go like this, and then you cross it like this. You just build up a good-sized pile, and since it's in the right case, then you cover it up with plastic and another tarp. That way, you don't run out of tobacco when the weather's not perfect. You can just go out there and start stripping it off. And the neatest thing is getting the right tie string leaf. You fold that up so it's about that wide, like a bandana. You wrap it around there, split it apart with your fingers, and draw that tail up through there. And you're sticking it back on a stick. Getting it ready to go to the tobacco barn. And that's about it. It's just a hell of a lot of work.
So people don't want to do that anymore so much.
Shit, you couldn't pay them $1,000 a week to do it.
Too hard of work out there in the hot sun.
Oh, hell yes, it's backbreaking work.
Typically, how many acres would a tobacco farmer have?
Well, me and James Hale used to grow about 2 acres.
Okay.
Me and John Bratton used to grow about 5. And he'd get all the leasing done. I'd throw my leases in there, and we had it in front of his house, and I'd have it in front of Mom and Dad's house. And then we rented a field next to James Hale's at Charlie Noak's place, and he's the one that was so stingy he'd go out in the woods and cut down little... Charlie was a good guy, though. But,
maybe a couple acres typically.
Oh, yeah, you'd have to have a couple acres to make any money.
Okay.
And
then how do you market it? I mean, how do you sell it?
This is an interesting thing. Usually, when I was doing it with these old men, you hired a guy across the creek, Carl. I forget his last name. He had a big flatbed truck. So you just stack it on there, and away you go.
Mm-hmm.
And he might have 4 or 5 farmers together on a load. And the most beautiful thing you'll ever smell is being in a big tobacco warehouse.
Mm.
I mean, it goes 100, 200 feet.
Mm-hmm.
There's row after row after row. But now it's in a basket. You take it off them sticks and you put it in this basket, and it just keeps going around and around. When you get done, it looks like a damn pineapple.
Mm.
I mean, it's the most beautiful thing you ever saw if you know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it you can see was just sloppy as hell. Well, they don't like to see that either.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see a professional job all the way. And thank God I had these old men teach me how to grow it right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
After that, they a bunch of tobacco buyers go through up and down the rows, and it just...
They grade it?
Well, it's already graded out.
Oh, okay.
Like I got 3 grades. Some people went to 5, but we later went to 3. But anyway, you can tell by looking at it. These guys are doing it for a living, so they know. It doesn't have to be marked or anything. They walk up and down bidding, and then they got to go to Browning, got to go to so-and-so. And then they go ahead and put a tag on it saying so-and-so bought this lot for this much money. It's by the pound, you know. That's why I said I got $2 a pound the first time anybody in Tennessee. That was my first tobacco crop.
Mm-hmm.
First guy in Tennessee to get $2 a pound. Then everybody wants back in on it.
Ah.
It's crazy.
Is anybody growing it around here anymore at all?
No, not that I know of.
Uh-huh. Just too much work. Can't get anybody to work.
Well, there was a guy over on Woodbury or Auburn Highway, 96 going to Murfreesboro.
Mm-hmm.
Down in there, he had, oh Lord, he probably had 2 acres growing.
Mm-hmm.
And I never saw it the last few years. Every time I've gone by, of course, I look.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I like to go out there and say, hey, can I pick up some fly-ins? They're the things at the very bottom that, you know, you can pick up, and it's kind of neat, and tie it up like you're supposed to. Hang it on a nail in your front porch or something.
Uh-huh.
You can go out there and just feel that, and that'll tell you exactly how much moisture's in the air.
Mm.
That's how the old folks used to tell.
Mm.
That would tell them when it was a good time to shoot.
Well, there's still a lot of tobacco around, though. I mean, in within our culture. So who's growing it?
It's all grown in big farms in Virginia, Maryland.
So the small
cow.
tobacco farmers basically gone.
Oh, they're gone because they can't compete anymore.
Okay, really?
Yeah, I mean, some of these places, even here in Carthage, where we used to take some once in a while, they'd have the tobacco barn there where you sold it, but they also raised, 30 or 40 acres.
Mm-hmm.
So they had all these shanties just in a line going from the tobacco warehouse just along the road.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all for the field hands.
Mm.
And they're all black folks.
Uh-huh.
Real hard workers. And,
Uh-huh.
I mean, they knew their business.
Yeah.
Yeah. They made it disappear out of the field
Really quick.
and into the barn real quick.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So is everything done by hand still, or is it all machine now, you suppose?
Well, they've started throwing it in a box they've made, and you put a car jack on the top, and it squishes it down into like a big plug of tobacco.
Mm.
And then you tie it off, and then anyway, it comes out as a big bale.
Okay.
And it weighs like a ton.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way they do that part now. That's changed. And now that's all you see in the tobacco warehouses is that stuff.
So most of the stuff you're buying over the counter anymore is from a big industrialized farm. It's not from is it? So very, very few people growing it today.
Very few.
Yeah.
I know some people that grow just a little bitty. They find somebody that's growing it, and they may get 16 or 20 slips from them, and they'll put them outside of their garden, and then they'll go ahead and they know how to mix the flyings with the middlings, and end up with that for themselves.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah. All right. Well, that's fascinating, Jim. I don't know anybody else who has that kind of information. Probably a dying art, too. Lost art.
Well, everybody taught me how to grow tobacco's been dead for years, so I'm glad I could pass that on for you, because it's a gone deal around here. I mean, all these farms around here used to have livestock on them, hogs down in the bottom, because that's what you relied on for food too. I mean, you kill a steer every year, and I used to kill 3 hogs every year, plus a steer. And of course, you had chickens, and we kill, maybe 60. Put them in the freezer.
Sure.
Between me and my mom and dad, we grew everything except sugar. That's the only thing we had to buy was tea and sugar. Because I never drank coffee.
Still don't.
No. Never have touched the stuff.
Yeah.
Bad for you.
Yeah.
This is what you should be drinking.
Beer. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for talking, Jim. That's fascinating.
Well, I'm glad I had the experience of doing it.
So am I. Take care.
You bet.